What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Hopefully you had a good weekend overall. Had a good time here. We took apart a Game Boy game, Pokemon Silver, specifically replaced the battery. Had a very, very large spawn cast. And overall, it was a pretty good weekend. Got a chance to play some Kirby Star Allies. I think I'll be finishing that game up actually today. And I may have a chance to share my thoughts, impressions, or even a review of that game as we go forward. But today we have to get into a whole bunch of stuff. Nintendo appears to be poised to really push a lot of indie games along as they announced one of those mini Nindy Directs. And then we also found out that God of War had its gameplay leaked, and then it was getting ripped down by Sony over the weekend. It was all over the place. And then we find out that Sonic Mania is getting a physical release, and that there might be another Sonic game coming that's a bit of a different genre that fans got really excited about. So today, guys, let's get started. So let's start with the Nintendo Nindies announcement. On Friday, Nintendo put out a tweet saying that they're going to have one of those small mini directs that was all around indie games. So there won't be any like big Nintendo games or anything there, no big first party games. This is going to be kind of like what they did back in September, where they did nothing but indies. They also did a Nindies at night kind of thing, but that was all about indie games, and this appears to be the same, where you're just going to see all indie games. There's a lot of stuff we need to find out about, but this is going to take place tomorrow, Tuesday the 20th, and it's going to start at either 9 a.m. Pacific time or noon Eastern time, so it'll be noon for me, and I'm going to go ahead and stream that. We'll have a lot of fun. We streamed the other Nindy events, and it was really cool. We got a lot of cool insider stuff at the Nindies at night, and the last indie event that they had all kinds of cool stuff. That's where we found out about the new No More Heroes game that we couldn't really figure out what was going on, but that's where they debuted it. Found out more about Golf Story and all kinds of other games that ended up coming out, and a lot of them ended up being pretty good. And there's a lot of games we need to find out about here coming up in this Nindy event, including things like Hollow Knight. Like when is that coming out, right? We don't know what happened to Pocket Rumble. That's another one. Undertale. I'd like to at least know a release date for Undertale, although they just told us about it recently in that Direct. So I don't know if they're just going to come out and just tell us about, in this case, a release date, because they probably would have just told us at the Direct. But maybe they have more information about Game Maker Studio that they're porting it with. And then, of course, we need to know something about like Wargroove, and there's so many games that we need to hear about, and then probably games that aren't even announced yet that are coming over that will make an appearance here. The indie ones specifically are really exciting to me because it could be anything. These indie games have so many cool ideas to them, and it seems like Nintendo is embracing them heavily. There's even a story we're going to go over here after this that talks about an indie developer pretty much saying Nintendo saved our studio, which it's crazy to see how in this case, how much these indie games are depending on Nintendo's platform at this point with the Switch, because that seems to be the best place for these games now. I mean, even Steam struggles to support some of these developers, as we've heard from different ones like Death Squared saying the Nintendo platform clearly sold more. And it's going to be interesting to see what they introduce here. Things like Undertale jumping over to the Switch was very interesting and kind of surprising. So yeah, let's see what other indie games are going to show up here. That's, again, noon my time. Tomorrow we'll be streaming. I'll probably go on stream about 15 minutes prior, and then I'm excited to see what we can get here. Now let's quickly talk about the indie developer that I was just referring to that says that the Switch, or at least the platform, saved their studio. And this was from FDG. They actually put this out on Twitter. There's this tweet you're going to see right here. And basically, it goes over how Castle Pixel can now stay in business and continue making games because, in this case, Blossom Tales, which, by the way, awesome game. If you don't have it, it's $15. Go buy it now. It's an awesome game. It plays so much like a Zelda-style game. I mean, seriously, it took a lot of inspiration from Link to the Past, and I absolutely love this game. It's $15, though. Not bad. Anyway, Castle Pixel specifically said that it sold 20 to 1, so 20 times more on the Nintendo Switch than it did on Steam. In fact, according to Game Informer, who talked to them a little more, Nintendo actually just completely approached them. A Nintendo representative approached them at PAX, interested to have this thing moved over. And this was a little more information that they gave us with Game Informer, saying, "It was a complete turnaround like FDG tweeted. It's exceeded lifetime sales on Steam by 20 to 1. Blossom Tales was built for Nintendo fans, and the fans ultimately saved us in the end." With the success of Blossom Tales on Switch, we're able to continue making updates and ports to other languages like Japanese. And at this point, Castle Pixel says they're going to start working on another game. I'm not really sure what it's going to be right now, but they're working on different languages for Blossom Tales. And like I said, that's a game that should be pretty much available to as many people as possible. Love that game, but it's going to be interesting to see what they kind of go with now, especially if they get away from that Zelda inspiration. I'm not really sure what they'll work on after this, but at least, I mean, it's good to know that a smaller studio didn't have to shut down because their game just wasn't noticed. It wasn't noticed on Steam. I didn't really know about it until it was announced for the Switch and we started seeing gameplay for it, because these games just get buried. I mean, absolutely buried on Steam, and they seem to shine through a lot more on Switch. Now, again, I've said this before, Nintendo has to be kind of careful here. They can't let every single game come out on the same day. Like, Steam just doesn't care. 20, 30 games in one day coming out? Sure, whatever. But in this case, Nintendo has to work more, I guess, more intimately with these indie developers to make sure that their games get that spotlight. And, you know, it's tough, because they all want to come out, you know, right away. But Nintendo probably has to set them up and say, listen, we're going to bring you out this week, and then that week, and then you'll come out this week, just to make sure there's a schedule and everyone doesn't just crash into each other and pretty much bury each other. I will say one other thing Nintendo could probably do on their shop, just to kind of highlight some of the indie games as well. Maybe do like an indie corner or something where you pull some of the higher rated indie games, or just newer indie games that haven't had much of a spotlight, that have kind of gotten buried even on the eShop. Maybe you have an indie corner that does rotate maybe every week, and you just bring in new indie games and have it there. How we have like games on sale, recent releases. Have something that's like indie games of the week or something like that, just to help highlight some of these smaller studios. Because if something like Blossom Tales didn't really get the limelight like it did, where everyone started playing it, it could have been buried as well. So I'd like to see Nintendo do something like that. They already do the presentations like the Nindy stuff. Why not give them an entire spot on your shop where people just go down, click, oh, Indies of the Week, and see what's new. Next up, let's talk a bit about Sonic, because Sonic had, well, a couple of announcements. This was at the South by Southwest Gaming Expo that took place over the weekend, Friday and Saturday mostly. But there were a couple panels, and they announced some stuff that had to do with the Sonic IP. One had to do with Sonic Mania, and Sonic Mania was, I think, the best rated Sonic game in quite a while. They actually tweeted this out a while ago saying, thank you so much for making this the best rated Sonic game in, I think it was like 15 years. It's been a long time since they went 3D and then they go back to 2D. They get actual fans to come in, make the game. People love it. Great game. Sonic Mania is awesome. And it looks like they're finally giving it the one thing that everyone criticized them about. They're giving us a physical copy. And yes, they're giving it to us, I think, later than they should have. There should have been one right away, but I get this was kind of their B project. Turns out to be their A project because it probably made them more money, and honestly, it was just a better overall product. But they're giving us a physical copy. This is the Sonic Mania Plus Edition. It's going to be $29.99. It'll have a 32-page art book, include 2 new characters, and more to the multiplayer mode. This should have been there with that special edition. Remember that special edition came out? It was just a code that came with it. No physical cartridge, no physical disc, and everybody was trying to figure out why. And I guess they just didn't want to take the risk. Does well, sells a ton. They're going to go back and resell it, because a lot of people like me will probably rebuy it at $30. Physical copy on a cartridge for the Switch with a 32-page art book and all the extra stuff. Great. Apparently, they're also going to be selling this update to customers as well. No price has been identified yet. This, I think, should be a free update for the people who bought in a really first thing. This should be something they give you, because the $10 difference for the 32-page art book and stuff like that makes sense, right? The little price difference there at least makes sense for the physical copy and the extra stuff. I think the early adopters should just get an update for free, just saying, hey, thanks for, believing in this project and jumping in. I mean, really, it's a couple extra characters, new modes and everything. I think they could just throw that in there, a little update you hit when you start the game. And then the one thing that kind of confused a lot of people, surprised everyone a bit, to a degree, because they tried to play it off. A lot of people found out there's going to be some kind of Sonic racing game coming. I will say, based on the trailer, I was a little surprised with what they're going with here, but they show a quick trailer showing real cars, like actual cars. It doesn't really look like a Mario Kart, type car or anything, but these are cars that are starting up with typical sounds and everything, but they sound like supercars and stuff starting up. And they show the headlight flashes and everything, and then it just goes to the logo with the R being highlighted and nothing else. And they say more to come later. Clearly a Sonic racing game. of some kind, but what is going to be there, we're not sure. We're still waiting to hear about details about this game. We assume it's coming this year, probably later on, maybe like an October, November release. We'll see. But yeah, Sonic Racing is a thing, despite them trying to play it off with like the community manager saying, no, it's not happening and everything. No, yeah, the Sonic Racing is happening, along with a Sonic cartoon shorts and then Sonic shoes. So a lot of announcements out of South by Southwest, but the two big ones were definitely Sonic Mania Plus and then this new Sonic Racing game. Next up, let's talk about God of War, because over the weekend, gameplay just starts leaking out everywhere. There were early preview events that took place. There was an embargo in place, I believe, till the beginning of this week. I think it's actually today you should start seeing some previews go out. That gameplay appears to have leaked out early, and it was all over YouTube. It was getting uploaded left and right, and it appeared that it was being copyright stricken down. So they were being ripped down, I assume, by Sony. That's what everyone says it was happening, was Sony. Sony was just basically copyright striking everything. They did not want this gameplay to be out there ahead of embargo, and I can understand why, right? This is supposed to be set up so that everyone gets a fair shot to cover it. And the gameplay that went out was interesting. It kind of has, this God of War has some people torn because there's no jump button, and people seem to fixate on that more than they should, because I have wanted a change of direction for God of War for some time. I've wanted a more narrative-driven story, a slower-paced, style with the combat and everything, and it looks like that's what they're doing. With the gameplay that they put out, obviously I can't show any gameplay here, but you'll probably see some of it go up today with previews and everything. It looks interesting. It's a little closer to him from behind, and it looks like it's a little slower combat-wise, but what's very interesting is they go into a menu and they show all kinds of stuff that appears you're leveling up, whether it's vitality, strength, dexterity. Those kind of stats appear to be there for leveling. So it looks like there is a full RPG system in place here, which is awesome. So it's going to be kind of like an action RPG. You did have RPG elements to the older God of Wars, but nothing like what we're seeing here in this gameplay. So I'm looking forward to it coming out. Of course, that is April 20th. It'll be out, and I'll be picking that up right away to try it out, because I'm liking the direction they're going here. Sounds like it's a very long game. God of War apparently is going to be 20 to 25 hours, and it looks like it's going to be really cool. And I guess this is kind of the end of Kratos' journey. He's older here and everything. He has his son, so I'm excited to see how they either, I guess, culminate the entire story, or maybe there's a God of War 5 coming up. I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, this is just called God of War, and I feel like that's kind of as like a full circle thing to kind of end it, but we'll see where the story goes. Next up, let's talk about another announcement from Sega, and this has to do with Yakuza. There are big Yakuza fans out there, and I understand why. It's a good game. I actually played Yakuza 0. And I remember playing the first one, believe it or not, on the PS2, and we had it traded in a while ago to one of the game stores we worked at, but I didn't get any further than that. Yakuza 2 was extremely expensive on the PS2. I think it was like $70 or $80 at one point to collect it. Super expensive, so I never got it. But it's a fun game. Yakuza 6 is actually out, I believe, next month. So the series is continuing. Yakuza 0 did really well. Awesome game as well. And Yakuza Kiwami came out, and that is a remake of the first one from the PS2. And another one, Yakuza Kiwami 2, came out in December in Japan, and fans have been wondering when that is coming over. Well, Sega announced that it is being localized, and it's coming out August 28th of this year. So not long at all. 9 months after it came out in Japan, which is pretty quick actually compared to the other ones, which is in some cases twice that amount of time. It's actually coming this August. So if you're a fan of Yakuza, maybe you're picking up the sixth one, you can now also go back and play Kiwami 2 in August. That's really cool. It sounds like Sega is really behind the series, and I get why. It's a really well done game. If you haven't played any of them, you can technically get started right away with 0, or I guess really any of them technically at this point, but 0 was kind of designed to get people in at a mainstream level and then kind of go back and play which ones you want. But hey, if you're already a fan, get excited, because the fans, man, when they showed that reaction trailer, fans were going absolutely insane when they announced that Kiwami 2 is getting localized this year. So look forward to it in August. You can pick it up. And our last bit of news, I'm going to turn you guys on to a very interesting indie game that people have been telling me about. Check this out. Can you cover this and everything? So I went ahead and took a look at it, and I have to say, this game looks pretty interesting. It's kind of a noir-based JRPG-style game that has like pixel kind of look to it and everything. It's called Pixel Noir. Check it out here. There's a trailer actually for it now. And Pixel Noir, it's a detective game set against a film noir backdrop that sees your character has been in jail for many years finally get a chance to clear his name once and for all. So it's very interesting the way they're setting this up, where it's kind of a JRPG style, but mixed with noir, and it has like that kind of that pixeled edge look. It is coming to all systems. They actually had a Kickstarter going, and it was completely successful, funding like through the roof. So they're good to go. It's coming to pretty much everything. It's coming to Xbox, PS4, Steam, and Switch. So it's going everywhere. This looks like a pretty good game for Switch owners to get into as well, because it's going to probably run the same on all systems. This isn't going to be a graphically intensive game or anything. And of course, the Switch gives you that portable aspect as well. I saw it. Kind of a neat idea. One of the reasons I like indie games, like I said, guys, because they kind of take chances. The game companies used to take these kind of chances back with the PS2 and the Super Nintendo days. This is kind of what used to happen, and you don't see that anymore. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on this. No word on when it's coming out or release date. I like to think it's coming out this year, but at least it's a cool idea, and we'll just have to keep an eye on it, and I'll let you guys know when a release day will show up. I don't know if this is going to show up in the Nindies tomorrow. I assume it's not, but hey, you never know. I guess we'll see. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave today. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, guys. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is the Nindies or the Nintendo Indie event that's coming up tomorrow. Are you excited for it? Do you already kind of have some things picked out you want to see? And are you excited to see if any new, I guess, indie games are going to start showing up on the Switch? We need release dates for a lot of them. Like I said, Hollow Knight and Wargroove are ones I'd like to see release dates for. And then I'd like to be surprised with a few as well. I mean, who would have thought last year we would have seen the next No More Heroes game show up there? That was pretty cool to see that kind of show up in the indie, really the indie, in this case, presentation. And they kind of let us know that it's kind of a collaboration thing. Very interesting to see all of that. And also let me know what you think about God of War in this case, Pixel Noir, or even any of the Sonic announcements, especially Sonic Racing. So interesting to see that kind of get hyped up in that way, to where we don't have a lot of information, just a trailer with a highlighted R. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.